Ruth Langsford has always been the calm heartbeat of daytime television. She's the kind of presenter who can turn even the loudest studio into a place that feels warm, steady, and safe. Viewers adore her for her quick wit, her gentle humor, and that unmistakable spark of kindness that seems to follow her everywhere she goes. But what the world didn't see, at least not at first, was the storm Ruth had been quietly walking through. A storm that tested her strength, her patience, and her heart more than anything she had faced before. It all began with a small shift, a moment so subtle that anyone else might have overlooked it. But Ruth noticed. She always notices when it comes to Eamonn Holmes. For decades, the world has watched them as one of television's most loved couples. Two people whose chemistry is so genuine that it feels less like something created for television and more like something the cameras simply happened to catch. They teased each other, laughed together, balanced each other. Everyone could see the love between them, even when they pretended not to. But lately, Ruth sensed something different. She'd watch Eamonn walk across the room and catch a tiny wince when he tried to hide with a joke. She'd noticed that the man who once charged through his day with unstoppable energy now needed a moment to breathe. He would wave it all off, claiming he was just tired, or that he'd slept funny, or that he'd pulled a muscle doing something heroic, which usually translated to lifting an unusually heavy shopping bag. Ruth wasn't convinced. Behind her smile, worry kept growing. She encouraged him to take things easier. She checked in on him more often than usual. And when she noticed those small changes becoming more frequent, she sat him down with that signature mix of firmness and love that only Ruth could pull off. After weeks of gentle pushing, a few not-so-gentle pushes, and one moment where she threatened to drag him to the clinic herself, Eamonn finally agreed to undergo more detailed tests. And that's when everything changed. The diagnosis arrived like a silent earthquake, one of those moments when the world keeps turning, but everything inside you feels completely still. Eamonn was facing a serious illness, one that would require treatment, patience, and more strength than either of them had prepared for. For Ruth, the news struck deeply. She didn't break in front of the doctors, not then. She held on to her strength long enough to take Eamonn's hand, long enough to reassure him, even though she felt like the air had been knocked from her chest. But later, when she was alone, she let the tears fall. It wasn't weakness. It was love in its most honest form. From that moment forward, she stepped into a new role, not as the host who brightens viewers' mornings, but as the partner who refused to let Eamonn face any part of this alone. She organized appointments, tracked medications, learned every small sign of progress or difficulty. She sat beside him through treatments, sometimes making him laugh with silly jokes, other times just holding his hand in quiet support. And Eamonn, usually the one cracking jokes and keeping spirits high, sometimes found himself overwhelmed. He hated the idea of Ruth seeing him struggle. He hated feeling like she had to carry the emotional load. But every time he expressed guilt, Ruth shut it down with a simple truth. Love doesn't measure weight. You carry each other because you want to. But even the strongest heart can't stay silent forever. When Ruth finally spoke publicly about what she had been going through, viewers saw a version of her rarely shown on television. Sitting in the studio, she tried to keep her composure, but her voice wavered. Her eyes filled with tears. She spoke about fear, real fear, the kind that gets into your bones. She spoke about watching someone you love go through something so difficult. She spoke about the sleepless nights, the quiet prayers, the uncertainty. For someone so famously composed, the vulnerability was startling and beautiful and deeply human. The nation responded with overwhelming compassion. Social feeds exploded with messages of love, understanding, and support. People weren't just reacting to the news, they were reacting to Ruth's honesty. Her heart had always been visible, but now it was open in a way that touched everyone who heard her. As for Eamonn, he found himself wrestling with a mixture of determination and emotion. He was fighting through treatments, pushing through fatigue, and dealing with the complicated feelings that come with watching someone you love worry about you. Insiders say he often apologized to Ruth, telling her he didn't want to be a burden. And every single time, Ruth dismissed that idea with the kind of warmth that could break anyone's defenses. They weren't facing a challenge as two separate people. They were facing it as a team, one built on nearly 30 years of laughter, mistakes, adventures, disagreements, and endless deep love. And despite everything, they found ways to laugh. Even during the hardest moments, Ruth would tease him about his stubbornness. Eamonn would joke about how this was all a cunning plan to make Ruth wait on him hand and foot. They'd roll their eyes at each other, make faces, and turn medical appointments into moments of strange, unexpected comedy. Because that's what love looks like sometimes. Finding a smile where it shouldn't logically fit. Though the journey continues, and though the future remains uncertain, those close to the family share that Eamonn is responding to treatment with determination, and Ruth, still the calm, steady heart she has always been, continues to stand beside him with hope, courage, and the fierce loyalty that has defined her for years. She now savors every small victory, a stronger day, a better moment, a shared laugh that feels like sunlight. She has learned to cherish every quiet evening, every gentle conversation, every moment where the world feels normal again. For viewers, seeing Ruth's tears reminded them that even the people who bring joy to millions carry private battles behind the screen. And for Ruth, opening up wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a declaration of devotion. No matter how long the road ahead may be, one thing is clear. Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes share a bond that shines brightest in the darkest moments. Their story isn't just about hardship, it's about love. Steady, resilient, sometimes funny, sometimes heartbreaking, but always real. And through every step of this journey, Ruth will remain by Eamonn's side, proving that love, true, committed, enduring love, will always find its way, even when life takes an unexpected turn.